I worship you today, Jesus. I bow before your throne, Jesus. I worship you today, Jesus. I bow before Jesus. Jesus. We worship you today, Jesus. We bow before your throne. Lift your voice and Jesus. Jesus. We worship you. Jesus. Jesus. I lift my hands to you. The only truth. I don't know how you do it, but I like it. You're consistent in all your ways. Waymaker, wisdom of the wise, the only true God. Oh, I don't know how you do it, but I like it. You're consistent in all. You're consistent in blessing me, loving me, keeping me, protecting me, Jehovah. Man, I don't know how you do it, but I like it. I don't know how you do it, but I like it. You're consistent in all. Sing it to him, Jesus. Jesus. Bow before the King of Kings. And Jesus. We worship you. We worship you. We bow before your throne. One more time, say Jesus. We worship you today. Yes, we worship you today. Yeah. Jesus, you love me too much.
You're all very welcome to this Mama Tendo parenting seminar. Yes, we're talking about parenting, and we have with us I should say a parent that many love, a seasoned parent, a parent that many love, someone that has had influence in the nation. Yes, and he'll be sharing with us about his parenting journey. Mr. Robert Kabushenga, he'll be sharing with us about his parenting journey and talking to us about some of the victories, some of the challenges, and basically sharing his life with us. So I want to welcome us this afternoon. You can see that he is ready and steady for us, but he'll be coming on shortly after we hear some remarks from Mama Tendo herself. Yes, it's a bright Saturday. We thank God for the weather. Saturday afternoon, the 29th of October, 2022. The year is gone. The year is gone. And I must say that we need to prepare for the new one soon and very soon. Yes, I want to welcome each and every one of us. Please reach out to somebody, reach out to someone. I want to say that we are also live on YouTube, on Mama Tendo channel, YouTube channel. I've shared the link on our chats, and please just get time, share that link with someone. Very, very, very welcome. Mama Tendo, I want to check if you are ready to speak to us before we invite Mr. Kabushenga. Mama Tendo. Okay, I see you're ready. Let me say a prayer and then I will hand over to you to take us on. Okay, let us pray. Dear loving Father, thank you for this afternoon that you bring us together to talk about a very key important issue, parenting. And we're trusting you, Lord, to give grace to our speaker, and we continue lifting up Mama Tendo and the foundation as she continues to empower families, empower parents, empower children, empower youth, empower girls. We thank you, Lord, that even for those that have logged on, even those that will be logging on, we commend them into your hands. Thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen and amen. Yes, I'd like to hand over to you, Mama Tendo.
Amen.
I think I've done what you asked me to do to start us off. Now I hand to you. Great. Mama Tendo, you can unmute. Yes. Mama Tendo, please unmute.
Technology.
Thank you very much, Elon. I can see you are dressed up for a big function, but thank you very much for being with us. Thank you very much. Mr. Kabushenga, we are very excited to have you this afternoon, and you are most welcome once again.
You obviously don't have better things to do, so that's good.
Well, we shall see. We shall see later on as we go on. So we are very, very excited to have you here, and we look forward to the words of wisdom that you are to share with us about parenting, about family. We have been looking forward to this meeting for a while. So thank you very much for honoring us and accepting to come for this meeting. I just want to make a few points, and then we will have our speaker straight away. I would like to say that I can see a number of people online and they're already sending messages. Thank you so much. I can see Ruth Muguta from Ministry of Gender. Thank you so much for being here and being part of this meeting in spite of your busy schedule. Yes, thank you very much. I would just like to say that Mama Tendo seminars has been in existence for a while. And also thanks to Mr. Kabushenga because he has supported this work for a long time over the years. So we are so grateful for that, giving the seminar visibility and making people come to appreciate the need to get counsel on parenting. I would like to say that we have a number of programs that we run. We run programs where we educate expectant moms on pregnancy issues. We run seminars on nutrition. We run seminars on family and counseling, and many of these programs we will later tell you about them. But for now, that's what I can say. We are also publishers. We have Mama Tendo books for children. So if you have children between 4 and 8 years old, plan to get in touch with us so that you can be able to get some books. And I'm not going to go any further because I want our speaker to start addressing us right away. But I just want to say that if you are a working parent, if you're a busy parent, just sit, tula gosirike busirisi, as they say, tula osirike, and listen to the counsel that you're going to have this evening. As working parents, we have challenges with priorities. We have challenges with making decisions, right decisions that favor families. We have pressures of finances. We have so many challenges. We have challenges of technology, and sometimes parenting seems like a jungle, not knowing where to start and where to end and where to find what you're searching for. But such seminars will bring clarity and insight to you as a parent, and you will know what to do to become a better parent. So thank you very much. And I would like to invite Mr. Kabushenga to start addressing us straight away. Thank you so much, Mr. Kabushenga. You are most welcome.
Yes, Catherine, you know, you like to call yourself Catherine, Mama Tendo. For me, I remember you as Nakaranzi. Is that the correct name, or have I got it wrong? Your clan name?
Yes.
Exactly. So first of all, I just want to check with you guys that the sound coming from here is good. Is the sound good, Catherine?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Fantastic.
I can hear and see you very well.
Great. So first of all, I want to congratulate you, Catherine, for what you've been able to achieve with Mama Tendo, to turn it into an institution that is relevant in the lives of thousands of people. This started as a column. Yes. But what's so admirable about you is the resilience with which you've been able to build this and move to other places. In fact, if it is any credit to you, it is the many Mama Tendos that have emerged, especially on Facebook. That, you know, there's a whole thing going on there, and I was like, how can this girl be able to do that? So, but it's a lot of credit to you, and even in all of this, to be able to maintain your Christian values and stick by them. So, and that's one of the reasons why I keep coming back each time you ask me to, without even putting any conditions or asking. I just accept. But because the other reason, Catherine, is the business of parenting is far too important to be left to other people. Unfortunately, that's what's happening. It's happening because people think that everyone else should do the parenting work except themselves. So it's teachers, it's maids, it's drivers, it's guys who run restaurants, it's the television, it's all of these things, except the parents themselves. And I also just wanted to say that if there is only one thing you take away from my conversation with you today, it is that for those of you who are lost and wondering where to start in this whole parenting thing, there is just a very simple place to start. Start by loving your children. It's just that simple. And it's just an emotion which should be authentic. And I'm not talking about expressions of love. I am talking about a genuine, emotional, physiological feeling that you can generate deliberately and also automatically towards those people that you have brought into the world. And there is also an additional element to that, that loving your children means and requires that you love your partner with whom you brought his children into the world. Of course, I am mindful of some of the circumstances in which people come into the world. I am one of those who arrived under those kinds of circumstances and ended up being raised by a single mother. So until I was 18. So the relationship between my parents didn't work out when they were just dating. And so when I arrived, it didn't work out. It only worked out 18 years later. And that's a different story that we can go into. And so one other thing I wanted to say is that I am not an expert on parenting. I have only 3 children. Some of you have 8, some of you have 10, some of you have children with various people. I am not saying this in judgment or in a moral way. I am just describing a situation that exists. I'm not one of those, if you have children with multiple partners, that's the circumstance. I mean, I have a half brother, I have a step brother. So there is no judgment there. I'm not a moralist. Catherine knows I am not the best of practicing Christians or even a person of great, what do I call it, faith, maybe? No, I don't know. I am a person of faith. I am a very spiritual individual. So I'm not the one to judge whether, children, whether it's moral not have partners. I mean, I spent the first part of my life in primary school being referred to as a bastard simply because I couldn't produce my father. So for me, these things don't matter, but I'm just telling you that whatever it is you want to do for your children, the starting point is genuine, emotional, physiological attraction and affection for the children, and also through your partner to them, because the children pick off on the emotions that are taking place between you and your partner, and they're able to tell whether your affection is an affection that they can trust, whether it's an affection that they can rely on, because you cannot be this nice and genuinely loving and affectionate person to your children and you're busy either beating or using, insulting your partner. So those are sort of like the preliminary things I wanted to say. If I remember some others, I'll tell them to you. My style really is to talk very little, if I can manage that. And then I'll let you guys with various questions ask them. And so that when you ask them, then I know that I am speaking in a manner that is very relevant. So I'm going to start by telling you 3 stories. The first one was that about 2 years ago, I think it was, I can't remember the exact time, I posted a tweet in which I said to people that they were playing with fire by giving their children to either border guys or house boys or house girls, whatever you want to call them. You have special names for those people these days, to take to school and pick from school. And I was literally hammered on that day. I mean, I found 796 replies, and everybody was going on calling me elitist, that I have money and I can afford drivers and I can this and that and the other, and I don't understand people's challenges with work and so on. What people didn't know is that on that same morning, when I witnessed this child, because there were 2 girls and they were being walked to school by a guy who was clearly a house help, and the girls were crying. Actually, one of them was crying as they were walking them to school. And the boy, all he was doing was making sure that they don't walk into the road, but he didn't care what the emotional situation of this child was. So then, literally like 100 meters ahead, I saw a mother come with a child, stop a border man, tell the border guy, then put the child on the border. Then she sat herself at the back, and the child was between her and the driver. And obviously they were going to school. So I said, if this mother, who is as humble as this and takes her child to school on a border, this guy who can afford a houseboy, and the school that I saw those kids going to, because their uniform was really nice and they looked like very well-fed, good-looking, middle-class kids, how can this guy possibly convince me that he is unable to take his children to school? Or because there are so many things that happen in that journey. So, but what it brought out to me was how completely out of touch we are as a generation, and especially people who are 1 or 2, let me say 2 generations removed from my age, about parenting. And there are many things that I see. First of all, the views that a lot of these generations have about marriage, the way people treat their partners. There is this whole thing about money, and you wonder what happened to good old affection. But I think I'm old-fashioned. So the second story I want to tell you is in 1978, there was a war in Uganda. Tanzanian forces and some elements of Ugandan exiles decided to remove Idi Amin by force of arms. In response to that, Idi Amin started carrying out some operations in, supposedly security operations to get collaborators. So one of those operations came to our neighborhood. Now, one of the things that the guys did was in our neighborhood, I need to explain a little bit. In our neighborhood, a significant number of families were headed by women. Either their husbands had died, or their husbands had gone to exile, or marriages just didn't work out. It's just as simple as that. So the soldiers decided very early in the morning to do an operation for people to identify themselves and account for themselves. So they were going house to house, and if they found you were a woman heading a family, they asked you to show a death certificate to prove that your husband was dead. Other than that, it was concluded that your husband was a gorilla. Soldiers used to refer to the Ugandan exiles. And then you would be taken away to answer questions. So when they reached our home, my mom couldn't explain why she had 9 children in the house. Now, in the house, there was her own 2 children of her sister, so that's 4, 3 of her own sisters, that's 7. And then there were a housemaid and one of her cousin's sons. So we were 9 in a little one-roomed flat. So they asked her to explain where the father of those children were, where her man was. And my mom, true to character, simply refused to say anything. And the reason was, and I understood why, because of course she couldn't account for my father. There's no and apart from the fact that they had separated, my father was in exile anyway. And my stepfather, who came a bit later, had also hadn't worked out with my mom, but I had a half brother, sorry. And so she couldn't even claim that she was his wife. So she was stuck. So when she failed to explain, the soldiers concluded that she was hiding something. And then they decided that she should be taken to an interrogation center to explain. So I don't think there was a day I ever saw such affection from my mother like that day, because she got her jacket, wore it, held me and my brother very close, and then said farewell to the rest of the people in the house, and she walked out. And so we started. So in the meantime, we were all lying on the floor now, because they told us to lie on the floor. So and that picture is still vivid. So they took her. Now there was a Land Rover waiting outside, and the people they had arrested who couldn't account for who they were sitting on it. And as it turned out, she was the only woman who was being taken. Now, below, the guy who lived below our flat was a teacher, but he came from West Nile. So we decided to go and look through the window to see whether they had taken her. And we noticed that the teacher from the house below, was talking to the soldiers, and my mom was standing outside the Land Rover, and she hadn't yet climbed the Land Rover. So we were peeping and peeping and peeping. And then after what seemed like eternity, they let her go. So when she came back into the house, we all exploded in tears, tears of joy, tears of what could have been, the whole emotional turmoil. And I'll never forget what my mother said as soon as she walked in. So she walks into the house and she remarks in Lugisu, which is my mom's language, and she just said, "My children." And that's a phrase that my mom always used when there was a lot of risk and danger. So as it turned out, the guy who lived below us approached the soldiers and he spoke in them in Lubara and asked them where they were taking this woman. He came back with her into the house just to make sure that, we were happy. So they explained that she couldn't account for her, So the guy said, "Look, I've lived on these flats for 5 years. I've seen this woman. I don't remember any man. In fact, the only man I have seen coming here is a soldier." So they asked her who was the soldier. And then when she mentioned the guy's name, he was her brother-in-law who was serving in Amin's army. And so when they cross-checked, it is true he was there and he was in the unit in Masaka, and they released my mom. And so for me, that crystallized the importance of parenting. But my mom, I don't know if any of you knew her anyway. She's been dead 21 years. So my mom, I need to check the time. I may be talking too much. So my mom, when my mom became pregnant with me, she was in what is the equivalent of senior 4 vacation. So my mom had delayed to go to school. I don't want you to think of her in terms of today's senior 4 kids, because I think senior 4 kids today are 16 or 17. She was 23. But those days, school fees would be lost, people went to school late and so on. So my mom didn't, so she came to Kampala and runs into this guy who was on campus. Then has me, and then there ends her education, so she went to work. And throughout her working life, my mom told me only one thing. She said, "There is no inheritance in your father's home. The only inheritance you have is the education that I'm giving you." And for her to take us through school, so my mom worked as the equivalent of what you people call a receptionist today. And to raise the money to look after us, to pay school fees, she resorted to supplementing her salary with selling I think you people call it eats, but snacks. Snacks, the correct word. So occasionally she would make chapati, she would make scones or buns, whatever you want to call them. I used to participate in selling those buns in the neighborhood as a way, and then I'd bring back her money. My only pay was that I was the only one who used to get an extra bun during tea time. But I understood then that our livelihood depended on those little things, and there was nothing embarrassing about it. There was no shame in it. I just understood that if we're going to get a chance in life, we have to go to school. To go to school, she has to make the money. And she made a number of personal sacrifices. I mean, the first time my mom walked into a salon to do her hair and paint her nails was 1 month after I had graduated from Makerere with a degree in law, and that's in 1994. And she didn't see all these other things as necessary. For her, she was focused on making sure there was a roof, there was food, and that there was an education. And then something else that my mother did. So when I failed to get good grades enough to take me to a really good boarding government school, a cousin of hers told her that there was a school in Busoga where the headmaster was, first of all, a Muzungu, two, he still, because at that time, caning, which you all know about, ended in primary school. This guy carried on caning as a form of discipline measured. We can debate today about whether it was effective or not. But for a single mother who had a boy getting into teenage, she needed a more strict regime. And plus, in those days, you wore shorts in primary school and then you switched to trousers in high school. But in that school, which some of you may know, Damasagari College, you continued wearing shorts until you finished senior 4. She just said that's the ideal school for my son. Her cousin then was living and working in Busoga, so he put me in as his son. And so I was eligible to for a bursary. And that's how, she found ways of making sure her children went to school. Today, we are all grown up. And my brother is doing well, I'm doing well. And all the other people she raised. She was a senior 4 dropout. Raising children during the most difficult times in Uganda, and without facilities, no resources. So, and we learned to make do. She made sure there was food. We made clothes stretch as long as they could. We understood the value of secondhand clothes. We can talk about them today in derogatory terms, but they saved us at a time when really there was nothing to wear. So that ingrained in me a sense of obligation and responsibility to your children. Children are such a gift. It is probably the best gift you will ever get out of life. Forget the stuff that you guys give each other all along. Then you go and you buy a car for your wife, and then you think it is the greatest gift, and then she buys you a suit, and then you think, or an expensive watch. Oh, my wife loves me. All that is hot air. The greatest gift that my mom ever got in her life was her 2 sons. The greatest gift that my wife has ever given to me was those 3 children that we both have. And we treat them as a gift to us, a reflection of ourselves. And so the moment you value these children the way you do, then you do what is best for them. You don't just dump them in a place. You make choices that are deliberate and whose purpose is to put them at the best possible advantage. My mom made those choices so she could. My mom just lived and worked for our education. That's all she cared about. And in fact, it's very interesting because she died about less than a year after I'd been married. And 2 things had just happened, actually. I had just gotten married and my brother had just graduated from university. She had been sickly, but I feel up to today that at that point she decided that the purpose for which she lived was now done. Her boys were grown, they were done. It's time to move on. So I carried that sense of responsibility, sense of obligation to my children. And there are many ways in which that has worked out. So first of all, I recognize that parenting should be a joint project between the father and the mother as much as possible, even if you're living separate lives. In my case, actually, my father was completely absent until 18 years later. And by the time he came back, I could see he was struggling to connect with me emotionally. He was struggling to be a father he didn't know how to be. And it really bothered him. Not that he was necessarily a bad man, because I found many things admirable about my father that I emulated. And in fact, I was very proud that I am an exact replica of my dad. So every time people meet me who know my dad, they look at me once and say, you must be Geoffrey's son. But I am saying this to you because I have experienced the fact that my mother used to tell me that I am your father and I am your mother. And there is always a void if one of the parents is not engaged. It creates a problem. And I have situations or shortcomings that I know I have as a result of that situation in which I found myself. So you must think beyond yourself as a parent. You must think, what would be good for this child? Yes, you may have separated and moved on to new lives with other people, but the fact of the matter is there is a child. And how can it work for both of you? So I've watched friends, I have seen people, and it's painful to see the acrimony and involving children in that stuff. And then this child is 25 years and goes and commits murder, and people wonder what happened. Or the child goes on to drugs and say, oh no, we failed as parents. You didn't fail as parents. What you failed was as human beings. So initially, I made it very clear that this was going to be a partnership with my wife. And if there was a disagreement about the parenting situation, it would never be in front of the children, and it would never be, we would never contradict each other. We would never contradict it. If my wife takes a position relating to the children, that's the end of the story. They know they can't come to me to reverse it. It's because I'm not going to. They even have a joke about it. They say that my wife controls me too much, so they can't get anything from me. So then they're also very clever now, so they know that I have an extremely soft spot for my daughter. So she's the one who comes to ask the difficult things, and yet she's hardly ever talks to me anyway. So the point is, do it as a partnership. As I said earlier on, show the expression of love. And for me, it started on day one. My wife used to, so all her deliveries were cesarean for all sorts of complications. It wasn't a choice. Now, what's very interesting is I always made sure that I was there and I was handed the child carry from after they had cleaned, then I'd washed my hands. So I carried my child and put the child to bed myself as the beginning of the connection and bonding. And that feeling of warmth that comes, the child is aware that there is a certain human who is warm, who has a special connection with me by just that holding of children. So we did a lot of that. And then we model the behavior that we want the children to have. We're not going to tell them, be this, and then we don't do that. So, for instance, my children know my position on alcohol. They've never seen me drinking. In fact, one day my son found me holding a bottle of beer. He asked me, Daddy, what has happened? He was in complete shock. The two older children, of course, do take some alcohol occasionally, but they know my position. Now, if they drink, that's a choice they've made, but I've told them point blank what I see as the risks, and they know that I don't drink. So there are other things that I do. For instance, one of the things we did early on, we could have told our children to read. We could have told them, you bought them books and told them to sit down and read. But what we did all the time was we read in their view. I had books everywhere, including in my car. It's the only thing that I leave lying around in the car. I looked at some of you people in your cars. You have shoes, you have dresses, you have food, you have office documents, you have all sorts of, you're basically modeling clutter, whose purpose is not clear. So one time we were on a flight and we were sitting, all the five of us were sitting on one row. And as soon as we put in our seatbelts and the plane took off and it settled, we all simultaneously, without prompting, each one of us brought out a book and started reading. And there was a man behind us who just exclaimed, he said, "Oh my God, what a family." And I turned and looked at him and I laughed. I asked him why. He said, "All of you read?" He said, "Yes." I said, "How did you get it?" Then of course I explained to him how we're able to do it. So there are things that can be done. I think I have talked too much. Yeah, and in terms of modeling, there is something else that, you see, these children observe. Me, I used to observe my dad. My dad was a man of incredible willpower and determination. So my dad had mental health problems, but he worked in public service for 28 years. Even when he would break down, he'd still come back. He restarted his life like 5 times. Now, 2 incidents stand out for me. He went to hospital and he was diagnosed. My dad used to drink a lot of tea with sugar. So he didn't know that he was a genetic or diabetic. So when he got to hospital, they told him that he had triggered diabetes and he had to stop drinking sugar. And just like that, the next day, he just came back home, told my mom, no more sugar. And that was the end of the story. Then a couple of years later, he got bronchitis. And they told him he had been a chain smoker all his life and used to smoke a packet or even 2 packets a day. So when he came back, they told him, they went to hospital, they told him you have bronchitis, you can't smoke anymore. And just like that, he stopped smoking. The story. So I learned those things from him. I learned things like moving on, don't waste time on things that don't matter, be focused, priorities. You can't tell your child to be focused on studies when you're not even focused on your work. You are, instead of focusing on them as a family, you're busy focusing on the score of Arsenal versus Nottingham Forest, or you are focusing on your friends to go and play golf. I have nothing against golf, but you've got to choose the things that matter to you. I chose work because work enabled me to earn money, give them the best opportunities, and I told them that, and they didn't like it, but at least they knew why I would sometimes spend hours. But what I couldn't explain is what I was doing in a nightclub when they're at home. So, Kathy, I can go on and on, or Elon should go for his quadrilla because I think he's going to get caught up. So, and then I'm going to open it up for questions. Just give me 2 minutes. Kathy, I forgot to get a notebook with a pen. So let me just go and get it and then come and sit down and we can take those questions. So just give me 2-3 minutes and I'll be back. So over to you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Kabushenga, for what you have shared with us. And I think the first thing that Mr. Kabushenga mentioned to us is very key and paramount. He said that love your children. I think for me that is such a simple but very important sentence. Love your children. And I think he was saying that is where it all begins. Love your children. They are rebellious, they are hard, they are difficult, they are not easy. Love them. Because as we know, we are told in the scriptures, in the Bible, that love conquers all, and that love is even greater than death, you know? So I think as parents, that's where we should start from. To love, to feel, and love means we feel compassion for the children. We feel compassion for them, even for their weaknesses, even for their shortcomings. We feel compassion for them. And in that way, we can be able to help them navigate through the tough times that they may encounter, either as teenagers or young adults. If we love them, that gives on to sail through challenging situations. So yes, Mr. Kabushenga.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if people have any questions, I am happy to take them. Either you know, people, I mean, I don't know who is moderating the conversation, but I am quite happy to.
Yes. Hello. Elon. Elon, are you with us?
I think I see Ruth. Ruth has her hand up, so.
Yes.
Ruth Muguta.
Yes, Ruth is from the Ministry of Gender and she's working on the family policy for Uganda.
Why does a family need a policy?
She will explain actually. She will explain that.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kabushenga. It's a good thing to hear with someone from that caliber to talk about parenting. And one of the problems that maybe that came to us in order to come up with the national family policy, you cannot talk about parenting when you don't have a stable family. And you have told us, even from the beginning in your own testimony, the family is a basic unit. And if there is no love within the family, leave alone however much the man, the husband or the wife would want to love the children, if there is a bit of conflict within both of them, it becomes difficult for the children not to experience it. So that's some of the basics of the family policy. If you would want to know more, we can chat later. But I wanted here to ask about the balancing of work and family. Most of the parents have become absentee parents because of the claim, I'm working for the family. I'm working for you, the children. The demands are too high. The economic situation is too tough. And in the end, the family loses out, the children loses out. How can you help most people? Because we are also developing the National Parenting Training Manual on how we can help parents balance work and family to ensure that the children get the love we are talking about. Second, we are seeing most of the evils that are coming up. And when you analyze, and even from your talking, it is about of the first foundation the children got. I liked the way you said that what our mother got was the 2 sons. But others don't even, the children don't have that. I remember one of our big shot said, how do you expect me to give you love when I never got love? I was on the street here, I've maneuvered myself, and you expect me to love you? So the basic, we are saying people love us, the teachers should be good, the parents should be good, but they themselves never experienced love. So that is also a reason for the family policy. I can talk, Catherine knows why I'm going this too far because of what you said, but my basic unit is how do we reverse back? Someone never got that love, but he's going to be a parent, and most of us are becoming parents mistakenly. So how do you help such in your talk? Thank you very much, but I would like to get your contact so that the ministry can get in touch with you and we together will move on the issue of parenting and the family stability.
Catherine knows how to find me, so that I'm very easy to find. But I also spend a lot of time on Twitter, so you can find me there.
But very expensive to get.
So can I answer now? Yeah. First of all, Ruth, nobody, and this is an important thing that I would like people to understand. Nobody is a parent by mistake, and no child is an error. And please never, ever tell your children that they were a mistake. Never, 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 never. It is the worst thing you can tell a child. That will end whatever relationship you have with your child. The moment you say, I made a mistake, the child immediately learns that they arrived in this world, they were not intended, and therefore they are here by accident, and the person who is looking after them isn't invested in their future, and they can tell, and they grow up knowing I was a mistake. That's dangerous because you're producing a really, really dangerous individual. So guys, let's face it. The reason why I say no child is a mistake is because we all knowingly engage in the activity that brings children. Knowingly, willingly, we even enjoy it in the process. So I don't know how you can tell me that the outcome is therefore a mistake. It's not a mistake. Unless, of course, it was an unwanted situation where somebody was forcibly forced into a situation where then the child was conceived. Other than that, no child is a mistake. But I wanted to make that very clear. And me, who has been in those kinds of circumstances, I would know what it means, because there are also all sorts of other crises, identity crises and so on that come up. But that's that. Love and how it works. So Ruth, we'll discuss this when eventually we meet to talk about this. But I don't think that some of these things can be legislated. Some of these things are organic. Like love is how do we ensure? You see, for instance, you can have a policy, for instance, to review like the law of divorce and how divorce cases and separations are handled. Yes. 2, how do you recognize marriage? Those are some of the things that you can legislate. But how I manage and maybe even violence. how people should manage their families comes first of all from their personal experiences. So there are people who have not experienced love, and because they haven't experienced love, they think that they're not in a position to give love. I don't agree with that. The fact that you didn't experience parental love doesn't mean you didn't experience love elsewhere. And by the time you get to the point of having children, you're experiencing love from your partner. So what is so complicated about reciprocating it? The only reason is that you're a selfish individual who only sees everything else as to the extent that it serves you. Otherwise, the fact that you were in a parenting situation that may have had a love deficit, and I don't think that all those kinds of, that there's complete lack of love unless you are abandoned on the streets. But even then you wound up in a home, whatever. I mean, we're not talking about Charles Dickens types of situations or Charles Dickens. So it's not an excuse. And I will repeat, these things, the expression of love to children comes in many ways. The worst form of expressing love for the children is buying them things. That's the worst form of expression of love. And yet some of us think that in doing so, and having the child sitting in a room full of toys, full of things to play with, we've showed our love. That's complete rubbish. My children talk about the times when they were in primary school and the snack that they used to get. And my wife, she would always pack carrots, sliced carrots, bananas, this and easy, and water. I do not recall any one time that these children, when they went to school, being given a snack that involved either sugars, processed foods, or any juice. And yet they didn't feel, they just thought there's something odd that we're eating this and our friends are not eating this stuff. But we eventually explained to them that at that age, we would have killed you if we had given you all of this stuff. And now they know. It was not seen as if we didn't love them because we didn't let them take chocolate to school. We have chocolate in the house. They eat it when they want. It's not a big deal. We have soda in the house. They do it. So, but you introduce things early and you explain to children why you are doing them and they will understand. The other question, Ruth, that you asked is how to balance work and family. There is no balance. You will never balance that boat. It is lopsided. You will keep swinging from one end to another. So, and I'll give you one reason, for instance, why it won't balance. You have 5 days for work. So, and 2 days of a weekend. So already there is an imbalance. So how do you, but we shouldn't be looking at work-life balance. We should be looking at the purpose. Why are we working? What is the reason? You can't go around saying I'm working for you as a family, but these members of the family can see that you're not working for them. And how do they see? When you make money, you go out to celebrate alone, or you buy a car which makes you happy, although you want them to believe that the car is for the family. You buy yourself new clothes all the time, a brand new pair of shoes, but you're not spending on the things that secure the children's future. So I think that you need to make a choice. It's a choice you will have to make based on what your purpose for work is and what your priority is. If your priority is to network and spend your evenings out with the boys and say, you know, I need to be there in order to do business, that's all right. You're sacrificing the ability to talk to your child about the things that matter. You're sacrificing watching your child grow. And eventually when you leave the job like I did, you will come home as a stranger. So how did I get around that problem? Early on in my life, in my working life, I decided, as soon as I got married and we started to have children, I told my wife, I explained to her that I'm going to work extremely hard. In fact, I even gave up my social life completely. But I said, because I want to secure you as my wife so that you don't have to go through the kinds of things that I saw my mother go through. And I also just want to make sure you have a roof over your head and you don't have to struggle. But I also want to give my children the best possible schooling experience that my money can buy. so that it creates the opportunities for them. It opens the doors that they would like to open. Because if there is one equalizer, one factor that causes social mobility, it is education. And I explained that to my children from when they were young. Not only did I explain it, they saw it in the choices of school, and they knew the kind of resources required to keep them in those schools and the sacrifices that I was making. Because they could relate. I told them I could have decided to buy a brand new car every 2 years. I could have decided that we, as a family, we go on holiday every year to a destination. There are people who make those choices. That's your choice. That's the way you relate. Fine. For me, I showed them that I wanted to invest in their future, and that if I am not with them, it is because I'm trying to construct this kind of future for them. And then when the time came for family time, I never ever engaged in work. So I found creative ways of dealing with it. One of those ways was throughout these children's going and coming from school, I took them to school every day. I picked them from school. Even now, when they are studying outside of Uganda, I make sure that I am the one who takes them to the airport, and I am the one who picks them from the airport. Because these children want to come, when they come home, there are things that they want to tell you immediately, whether it's from at the end of the school day or they have been on a boarding school. You are the first person, because they love you, because they expect you to understand them. You are the one they want to tell things first. Now, when you send a driver or a bodyguard or whatever to pick them, they're like, I can't talk to these guys. Those are the grown ones. The younger ones think, okay, maybe this guy is more interested in my life than my dad, and they develop a bond. So for me, I found ways. They were not balanced, but I found little openings to connect with my children. And that was an important one for me, because then I could talk to them. But also, can you imagine if your child has been away from home for 3 months and the child comes out either of school or the airport, and the first person they see is their driver? The letdown is so much that when they go to him, they don't want to talk to you. Why? Because you were busy at Acacia Mall or wherever Village Mall and so on, so you couldn't be bothered to go and pick your children. Really? So for me, there are those little commitments that I made. And I said, okay, we all can't afford to go and visit the children. I always made sure on important events, their mother went. And they understood. I explained to them that we both can't travel because it's not cost effective, but at least your mom will be there. And I know that you guys have a fantastic relationship. You won't object to that, and they're happy. Plus, also, the things you do and the way you conduct yourself is another way of being in their lives. Sometimes I would conduct my work issues in their full hearing or full view, so that they can understand the life of their father. A very interesting situation happened when I was leaving my former workplace. There was a really, really thoughtful farewell party for me. So I went with my son, of course, my wife and my son. But I took my son because I wanted him to understand a bit more of who I was in the workplace and what I meant to the people in the workplace. And he, as a witness, I am sure at one point will be able to talk about me to his brother and sister of what I was in the workplace. Now, during that function, they played a video, and the video was very emotional by the staff members about my departure. Now, I was so engrossed in the video, but when I turned on my side, I saw my son was crying. And I knew that finally he had understood who I was in the workplace and why I was doing what I was doing, and how I had impacted people in the workplace and society, and therefore it wasn't all in vain. So the balance, no. The purpose, yes. The purpose will then define the sacrifices you make, so that you don't sacrifice your family thinking that you're working for them. I think I've said enough. Next question. So Kathy, while you find out who's going to speak next, there was a question. There are two questions that have come in online. One of them is from Nalongo Nkolo, who says, please talk about children's education, possibly share some experiences. How do we deal with poor performance in school? Yes, 95% of the time that you have poor performance in school, there is a problem at home. So if you want to understand why your child is performing poorly at school, first check what the problem is at home. There is always a problem that has caused that child to be what they are. There is a huge problem. Either you are absentee parents or you don't even pick interest in the work they do, and the child is trying to tell you something about yourselves. Poor performance in school will never be fixed by teachers. It will never be fixed by tutors. It will never be fixed by coaching. Poor performance in school will be fixed by parents and understanding what it is that is driving the behavior that is leading to poor performance. If a child doesn't have discipline and is performing poorly, the discipline problem is starting from home. So please leave teachers alone. The job of a teacher is to pass on knowledge. Finished. It's not to raise a child. The teachers have their own children to raise. They are not, and some of those teachers, really, in all honesty, I wouldn't trust them with raising a child. The only thing I can trust them with is passing on knowledge. So if you're not involved in your child's all-round life, then the only time you come to discuss is when they show you the performance in school or they send a report. There is a problem. There is a real problem at home. Either self-confidence or abuse, even if it is abuse of other people in the house, not necessarily the child. So how you deal with poor performance is first understand what are the factors at home that are causing a problem with poor performance. And the worst thing you can do is to blame the child for their own poor performance. You need to understand what the drivers are and this kind of support that you can give them. Remember one thing, not all children learn the same way. That's absolutely important. The gifts are different, even your own children. I have 3 children, they are all completely entirely different and they learn in different ways. So it can't be, I cannot measure, I think it is Gandhi who said you cannot measure the fish, the fishiness of a fish by making it climb a tree. You can only measure the fishiness of a fish by leaving it in water. So that for me is important. Then somebody has asked, should we introduce sex education to our children? I don't know about sex education. What I know is issues of sexuality. And you should be courageous enough to have frank and open conversations about sexuality and sexual matters. It's not sexual education. Sexual education is people going on the blackboard and talking about organs and these types of things and describing their anatomy and all of that. We're talking about how relationships occur, when they should occur, how you talk to a girl is not the same way you talk to a boy. So if I talk to my sons about sexuality and sex, there are things I'll talk differently. Even if you don't, someone else is teaching them. Because with all of this explosion of the information age, there's a lot of information, movies and all this stuff. There's sexuality going on. So if you hide your head in the sand and you think that you're going to avoid that subject, I really pity you. So you've got to find a way. You've got to find the courage to confront this issue in a manner that is responsible and that creates trust between you and your children, because then the children trust you and your judgment about sex and sexuality rather than other people. Okay, Catherine. I don't know who else wants to talk.
That's a very interesting one. That's quite interesting. As you have said, summon up the courage and do what you have to do. This morning, I was in a parenting session with at my children's school, and they were asking the same thing. Parents were asking the same thing. How do you start talking to children about sex issues and all? But someone saying,
Catherine, there is a question here. Somebody called KH has asked, how are we as parents going to face and fight the Western culture of homosexuality in school? Hi. First of all, let me just say this. Homosexuality is not a Western culture. Homosexuality has been with us for years, actually for, I don't even know how to describe it. I don't know that's generations, but it is misleading for people to keep saying it's a Western culture. I think that what we need to know is, as a family, you just need to know that there is issues of sexual orientation out there, and that children will face those issues whether we like it or not, and fighting it by going out there to arrest all these people is not going to solve that problem. In my view, the way you solve that problem starts the day that child is born. What are your principles? What are your values? How do you, on a daily basis, pass on these values? What do you expose your children to? What are the choices of company? I mean, the people, families. I mean, people have different values. If you allow your children to associate with thieves, they will become thieves. And if you don't frown on theft, then they'll think theft is okay. So if you are not talking about or making it clear what kind of issues matters to you as a family on sexuality, licentiousness, and all of that stuff, that's what you're gonna have. I mean, there are families in the Western world where parents are openly conducting extramarital relationships in full view of their children. Then you wonder why your children don't have stable relationships. I want to say this, for instance, to the single parents, particularly. If you are a single mother or a single father, your children already know who the other parent is. Now, I'm not saying don't get into another relationship. By all means, please do. Because you, as a human being, you have your needs. But my advice would be, or my choice would be, is don't do it in full view or in full awareness of your children, because then you cannot tell them not to do what you are doing. If you have a way of keeping it away from there, then you conduct your matters there. Then you are a bit safe. So a lot of this stuff comes down to how we behave as parents, the things we consider important, the values. But you can't insulate against everything. We're living in a world. Tomorrow you're going to send your child to another country. You don't know what they'll find there. Okay? In the 1900s, dancing within a meter of the opposite sex was considered erotic. Today, you people are leaving your children to be raised by television programming, which is as erotic as anything else can be. And, access to the technology and all of this stuff is making it easy for young people to see things that we would have been taken to the bishop to pray for us if they had known we were seeing them. Not that we didn't see them, we saw them, but so it's up to you. You must develop a default position of strong values so that even if your children are exposed to these things, they have the strength of character and they have the solid foundation of values to be able to make the choices they need to make for their own good.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Kabushenga, on that. And I was still saying about sex education, that sex education does not start when the children are teenagers. They start right from when they are still young. The way you call private parts, how they should wash their private parts, how they should take care of themselves, how they should not expose them, how no one should touch their private parts. So it starts there and it starts growing. So it's our responsibility as parents. I liked what Mr. Kabushenga says, take up the courage, let us talk about this. Take up the courage, let us talk about this, because if you don't, someone else is doing that very thing and with very wrong motives. Yes. Any other questions? Linda, do we have any other questions?
Catherine, if there are none, I'm happy to go into my weekend.
Mr. Kabushenga, I just wanted to ask you how, because sometimes what stands in our way as parents, there's so much pressure to obtain this, to build this kind of house, to build this kind of car. And it's the real world also we live in.
Yes.
Yeah. And of course, our pursuit of these things has an impact on the time we have for parenting or even the building of relationships. So what attitude should parents have if they're raising children vis-a-vis growing their careers and growing their wealth portfolios?
It's going to be very rich of me to say what I'm saying, because I pursued and did all of that stuff. But I go back to the explanation I gave earlier. What is the overall purpose for which you are amassing either all these assets or building this career? What end? To what end? If it is for the children, then it will give you this, or as you say, for your family, let me just say the family. It will give you a guideline of how you then go about this process so that it is not damaging. But in most cases, those things, that what you have described, is always about the ego of the person who is trying to do those things. The person is trying to prove a point that they have achieved the highest professional career and is looking for acclaim, or has amassed so much wealth and is therefore going to become famous. All of these things, how should I put it? All of these things, it's the reason, the why. Why are you doing this? If it is for your ego, then you'll end up damaging your family, because you will spend more time trying to satisfy your ego, and the ego is never satisfied. It is always looking for the next thing, for the next thing, for the next thing. But if you are really genuinely working to make sure that your family is secured, then you will know, I am raising this amount of money for school fees. I am doing this for the house, for the wife. Maybe I want to have my children to have their own home. I am doing this so that it's not an endless pursuit of material satisfaction. It is a purpose. And that's when it gives you satisfaction. Now, when you start to involve the family, they will also tell you what matters to them, and you should listen. Maybe what matters to them is not a mansion in Kololo. It might be, or what matters to them is not that you have moved to the top of your career ladder. Maybe what matters to them is 3 hours every week where they just sit with you and talk to you. Or what matters to them is you going to visit the child at school, not coming with a pickup full of stuff like you're starting a new supermarket. So it's figuring out, why are you working? Why are you doing? Many of you don't even know why you're working. You even think you're pursuing careers. Well, you're not pursuing careers. So you need to go back and reflect and ask, why are we doing the things that we are doing, even in the workplace? If you want to please your boss, or you want to please your appointing authority, then that's all right. That's fine. Your appointing authority will be pleased, your family won't, but accept that that is what you wanted to do in the first place. Now, so please go back and reflect what matters to you the most. For me, the thing that matters to me the most is my children. That's it. Everything else really is secondary. Now, everything else then I have a starting point. So if they are not interested in something, then we can discuss. So Kathy, there are a couple of other questions that I've shot up that I want to address online. Somebody
yes, I've seen them.
Kelly Taremwa has asked, what can a mother do if a father is distancing himself from his child, yet he sends money but doesn't want to be there? I'm going to be absolutely brutal. Let the man go. If he's not interested, leave him. That's what my mother did. My mother just decided, forget about these men, let me raise my children. So you're going to have to do it on your own. Trust me, the moment you start doing that, your child will come, because you spend a lot of time trying to get this man involved in the child's life he doesn't want. So you waste time, energy, and then you get angry, then the child sees you are upset, you're unhappy, also that rubs off on the child. No. Just if he's sending you money, fine. If it's not, okay, now find a way. But you as a mother now, it's your responsibility. Trust me, that child's gonna come out very well. And I can also say this to you, trust me, that man 10 years, 15 years from now will come looking for his child. And you will have such an upper hand. And at that point, it will matter the most what you do. And at that point, the only thing I'll say to you is don't turn the child against the father. It's not, you will regret it. Don't say bad things or negative things to the child about her father or his father, well, because that can backfire. But you concentrate on finding ways to love your child, on finding ways and resources with which to support your child, and just forget about the man. Cut off, move on. There's hundreds of men who can support you. And those men can be your brothers, your father, your uncles, the child's uncles. So you just have to make a really tough decision and move on. Don't waste your time to say, no, the father must be involved. If he doesn't want, leave him. At some point he will want, and at that point he will be in such a weak position that you'll get everything that you would have wanted from. So that's that. And then, yes, then Kelly, again, you say you feel you don't want to introduce another man in her life. The only man you can introduce in her life at this point is a relative, either a relative on the father's side or a relative on your side, who then starts to play the role of a father figure. Unless you're going into a formal relationship with the other man, then that's a different discussion. Then you talk to the man, the fact that you have a child, and find out if he wants to support the child as a father figure. What I disagree with many people is that then you get the child to change their name and acquire the name of this new man. That one I don't agree with. I think the child should maintain the identity of the father, and there should be some kind of relationship. But if it is a relationship whose it's not clear, you're just satisfying each other's physical needs, then I suggest that you keep the child away from that arrangement, because then you are validating certain things that you may not want to be validated, and you may not want her to think of you in a particular way. I haven't shared how they used to call me a driver. Yes, so so at my children's school, one of the things we had to do was to be at the door. When by the time the classes ended, we all had to be there so the children came out. Now, the people who know me very well, like Catherine and a few other friends who know me very well, know that I am such a poor and casual dresser. So I looked a lot like the drivers. And so they would ask me, so your boss, where is he today? So I would play along, but they didn't realize that I was the father of the children until the children would call me daddy. Then they would get shocked. Then some of them, because I started to appear on television, they started to see that, there's a correlation, and then they recognized me. Before that, they never recognized me. So, and I didn't feel bad, no. I just felt sympathy and pity for the parents who were sending drivers, because drivers and maids were making decisions about where the child should go and play, whose home they should go to, and so on. And these parents had no idea where their children were going to play, which friends they had, what they were passing on, what they were picking from their friends' homes, nothing, absolutely no clue. And then they think they're parents because on a Saturday afternoon, they pick them up and take them for ice cream and watch football with them and show off that they have a child, but actually, really, they don't have a child. Okay, lunch at 3 p.m. to balance work life. Well, yeah, okay, that's another thing I wanted to say. Another area where I invested a lot was in making sure, and my wife was a big part of this, made this happen, was we had regular meals. So we always had breakfast together, and we always had an early dinner together, or a late lunch, whichever way you want to describe it. Then that gave us an opportunity to connect, and those would last at least an hour and a half, and then we would talk. If you're not at home having meals, or if you're going out to sit in KFC for meals, then you are in big trouble. Okay. There's somebody who has a hand up, Catherine. Do you want her to talk first? Then
Yes, I
answer.
just want to say, you've spoken it so casually about having meals together, but I mean, like, you just get together. I mean, I wish, I don't know, I felt it because it was so normal in your household, you are mentioning it with that kind of casualty. But this kind, I'm telling you, Mr. Kabushenga,
Yes.
very few families are having meals together. And
But Catherine, interestingly, every single family that I know has a dining table and a kitchen.
very true. We do we do have dining tables, but that if we were to do a survey and a sincere survey, we'll be ashamed of the results. And
Absolutely.
I think one of the things we usually do when we are discussing with my husband on things of family or things that we see we need to up our act in this area, one of the things that we do is that we say, let us pick one thing and run with it.
Yeah.
Especially if you're overwhelmed, you see this, pick one thing and run with it. One of the things that is so major, as they say that you can pick one action and it accounts for the 80, what you would have achieved by doing 80% of the things that you need to do. If you are here, one of the things that you're not eating together, please just pick that and run with it. And say, at least we shall be able to have early dinner and eat together, make every sacrifice. And also you can read about the benefits of families eating together. It accounts for so much.
By the way,
to make that table count.
Catherine, for those who can't have meals together, for whatever reasons there may be, find at least 1 or 2 days in a week where you have meals together. That's number one.
Very true.
Number two, there are other things apart from eating together that you can do. One is maybe you can watch a movie as a family, a movie which is not just a form of entertainment, but a movie that also delivers some of the principles that you want your children to learn and understand. You can read together. You can play board games, very cheap, don't need much. You can do crossword puzzles together. You can play board games together. Just create those moments. Create those moments when you get together. The activity is not the issue. It's the fellowship of being together, of your children seeing you in this very human, like one of the most interesting things was playing. There were times when we would play Matatu. I don't know if some of you know Matatu with the kids, and it was for money. And then I would see who are the businessmen, who is the laid back one, but they saw you being defeated. When they defeat you in a game, they see how you deal with failure. They see how you deal with defeat. It gives you an opportunity to do so graciously. So create these moments. You have a Saturday has 24 hours. You will be sleeping for 8. Maybe 1 or 2 other personal things for 2 hours. That's 10. You have 14 hours to do something with your Saturday. So I don't understand this failure to find time. The reason you're failing to find time is that you are running away from your obligations in the family and finding reasons. It's important. I have an important appointment with Catherine. We have something important to discuss on a Saturday. It can't wait. Will the world end? Will Mount Renzori tumble because you haven't met? No. So have a sense of perspective. What matters to you? And I want to say this to you guys. One day, you're going to need the support of these children when you're weaker. And they had better have an emotional attachment, otherwise they'll abandon you in a hospital. So Kathy Hawanampima asked me tips on raising children abroad. Now, I'll just tell you only one thing. If you're living with your children abroad, culture and identity and why certain things are done is so important, and explaining to them the foreign context in which they find themselves and how they need to deal with those cultural identity crises is so important. And so don't underestimate learning your own family history, your family tree. Why do you give names children? Like Hawa, you are obviously a Muslim. So you need to explain why you have Islamic faith. Nampima, why are you Nampima? And why do you give children the names you give them? They understand and they will appreciate. And that way, because they have an identity, you'll be able to pass on them certain values that will then help you to raise them. Then
Mr. Robert, can I come in?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I wanted to contribute on the issue
Who
of
are
having.
you?
I'm called Ruth Sasiro Muguta. I wanted to help you, to give you a testimony on how, if people don't have time for their children, how their children explain about them. Here there was a school and they were asking about the child, how they can explain their parents. And how they came out, this child said, just put a dot on the blackboard. And when they asked the child, he said, when I wake up, I hear the voice, but when I just go to see my dad, I see the back. That is in the morning. Even in the night, I hear him asking, our children asleep. Then as I wake up to raise my eyes and see, I see someone leaving, closing the door. So that is the father I know. So most of us are known by just seeing our backs. So let's ensure we are doing money, we are making money for our children, but they will kill us because they don't know why you are doing it. And that's why Mr. Kabushenga said, discuss with the children. They are human beings, they understand, and you can explain to them why you come late and why sometimes you don't have time for them, because they love you. What they need from you is not prizes, but they need your presence.
Okay. I saw a question from Maureen Tueyonjere, I think. I don't know if she still wants to talk, because she has her hand up before Elon comes in. Would you want to
We're still talking about the children abroad, yeah.
No, the children abroad, I just said, it's very simple. Make sure that you understand your family history, your family values, what it is that has brought you, so that the children are anchored in your family and the tradition and the culture. And you don't have to be an expert. You can always ask people. And it's important for you to know your family tree, absolutely important for you, because that anchors them. They know who they are. And once they know who they are, they will withstand the pressures of living abroad. Yes.
Yes, very good.
So
very good afternoon to Mr. Kabushenga.
Yes, who is speaking?
Speaking, I'm Maureen Tueyonjere.
Oh, okay. Yes, Maureen.
Yes, I want to thank you. Just like the other, I've joined this afternoon, and I really want to congratulate you. I want to congratulate Kathy for being extremely intentional about the exact point that we miss as a country. And I want to believe that for everybody who has joined us this afternoon, first of all, I want to thank you, Mr. Kabushenga, for the invite. It's the first time I'm participating in this. The time I almost participated, I missed out because the numbers had closed off because of the numbers. So I want to thank you for inviting me. I'm a very, very passionate mother. I have 4 biological boys, and I have children by nurture and children by nature. My children belong to the iRisers Club, and I want to what is happening in the news. That Botabika Hospital is overwhelmed with mental cases, and they are thinking about expanding the hospital. That we have a lot. They're thinking about expanding the budgets on security, on theft, on thuggery. I think for me, the biggest budget we need to talk about here is that discussion we're having this afternoon. Because everything that has gone wrong, I think, has gone wrong at family. So I don't know, I'm glad that we have a representative from, I have seen somebody from the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development. I want to believe that there are so many other persons that can inform policy, and so that we have a shift in the way we are conducting business, I think, as Ugandans and even as Africa. Because certainly if we do not go and change our homes, I don't know what is going to happen, but we are about to get into total disaster. So I want to thank you. I want to say that please don't give up. I know it's not easy. I look at the numbers that we are about maybe 50 to 60 people. I don't know how many others are on those listening to us and have spared this afternoon. I know that so many parents, as we speak, like you said, they feel that the best place to have their children is in Cafe Javas or somewhere at a beach, or you know what happens, what we call parenting. So I want to thank everybody who is spared the afternoon to be in this discussion, because this is all that we need as a solution to our country's biggest problem. Because once we do not, when we talk about parenting, we are actually talking about a bigger thing, because these children we are talking about are the foundation of the country. We are able to make discussions here because we have people, we have giants on whose shoulders we stood at that time to be who we are today. And therefore, when we are discussing issues to do with children, very fundamental to transformation of Uganda and Africa. So I want to thank you and commend you. I'm glad that I joined this afternoon. I'm glad that I have people that are well-intentioned, just like me and my team at iRisers Club Uganda. Kathy, we have worked together. You know me for working with Makerere University Business School. I'm the director of the Career and Skills Development Center at that institution. But and doing so many other things and trying to support. I really need to participate in this. So I want to request that if you have a platform that has these discussions going on at Mama Tendo, if that discussion, an online platform is there, please add me on that page so that we are able together to win as a country and to carry on this mantle, so that we have these prisons, the prisons, the mental hospitals, all these things should shut up once we have cleaned home. So I want to thank you again and wish you all the best and have a lovely weekend. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Maureen.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Maureen, for your contribution.
There are two questions that I think are absolutely important. One of them is mental health issues. So, first of all, you need to ask yourselves, what is the family context? Is there a lot of love within the family? Is there a lot of care? Is there a lot of support? Is there open conversation in the family? Is that the way that family matters are handled? Or is your family the type where there is tension all the time? You as the spouses have these endless fights in full view of your parents. In full view of your children. And do you engage in some of the behaviors that actually shouldn't be undertaken in front of the children? So, or are you absent also, because you may be absent, in which case other things are filling up for you. So that's the starting point, is to look at the hygiene, and by hygiene, I mean emotional hygiene in your family, not physical hygiene, emotional hygiene. What's the level of emotional hygiene in your family? And that is going to lead you to how mental health will impact your family. the fact of anxiety and depression and some of these things that happen, they happen to all families, regardless of social status. Even in families that are strong, you will have those situations. The difference is that because these other families have these strong foundations, relationships, their ways of managing tensions, their ways of managing differences, their ways of dealing with situations that would trigger mental health problems. So if right now your teenage child is abusing substances, you should be able to tell. If you can't tell, if you are unable to tell, there is an issue with you, not with the child, with you. You are missing something and you've been missing it for so long that you didn't realize it was happening. Because I hear people talking about, suicide rates have gone up. Well, first of all, the population has increased anyway, so the incidences will go up. But it is because we are negligent as parents. And so the next thing is, even when that situation presents itself of mental health, whether it's through substance abuse or anxiety or other reasons, how do you respond to it? Many of you respond to it by either neglecting it or trying to say that the child is spoiled and never examining what is it, or even looking for the support. So they persist. So there is professional support for mental health challenges, and I think all families should have a counselor or should be able to approach one when they need to. And then in some cases, it actually becomes a proper illness. People slide into depression or bipolar or whatever it is. Now, even that presents other challenges, and it will happen. So the thing is, there's no curse on you. It's just something you have to learn to deal with. Then secondly, the other question was an insight into cross-tribal marriage, raising of children. So I am the perfect example of that. My father was a Muchiga, my mother was a Mugisu. My wife is a Muganda. Her father was a Muganda, her mother was Tanzanian, is Tanzanian. So we have this cosmopolitan situation, and her sisters are married to men from different parts of Uganda, but we all live in this one family. So that's a dynamic each family has to find a way of dealing with. You cannot impose. You look at it as enrichment of cultures. So in my family, there will be Swahili culture, there will be Chigisu culture, there's Chiganda culture, there's Chichiga culture. My other brother-in-law is a Mutoro, so there's an infusion of Chitoro. And so these things cross-fertilize each other to produce an even superior individual, a more self-confident individual. In some cases, it can actually lead to a lost individual, but it doesn't have to be. But also what you need to avoid is parochialism, to think that because you are the man, therefore only the culture from your side should dominate. No, my daughter is named after my mother who was a Mugisu, but I am a Muchiga. So you need to look at this cross-tribal situation as an opportunity that opens up a different world that is rich with cultural experiences. So I speak both the languages of my parents fluently. I speak my wife's language fluently. I have chosen not to impose a language learning situation on my children because of practical purposes. One, we speak English in our house because my wife is more fluent in English, and so all of those issues. And it's a reality. It doesn't mean that my children don't know where they came from, what their culture is. They do. They probably even know better than some people who speak the language. I also feel that if the children know they want to learn the language, they will, because I have seen my cousins who've grown up in different contexts who have made deliberate effort to learn the language. So I'm not going to impose. It would be good if you can achieve it early. Great stuff, absolutely, and you should if you can. I failed to achieve it earlier on, and so the children will have to deal with that situation. Then Joan Prose says she's married but no biological child, but with a home with 8 orphaned children. How do you handle when they misbehave at home and at school? First of all, you check, is there behavior that they're engaged in that you yourself have either engaged in or you have allowed in the home? Two, are you raising these children, the two of you, or is it just you who is raising them and your husband doesn't want to know? Three, these orphaned children, what were their experiences? At what stage were they orphaned? What had they been? Are they from different families? What were the experiences there? How did they handle disciplinary issues? I am one of those, and I keep saying to people, I am a very firm disciplinarian, but I don't beat my children. I was the last person in my family to be beaten, and I told them that I will be the last. But I am very firm on certain matters. And these things, you have to start them early. For instance, one of the things we started with early was they had to go to bed at 8 p.m., chapter closed. It wasn't an issue for discussion. So we enforced it so much earlier on that eventually they would, by 8 o'clock, they would come themselves and say, I want to go to bed. Good night. They had to brush their teeth. So you start with those simple things so that the children learn that you are the law and that when you say something, you mean it. And never send mixed signals to children. Always say something that you mean and mean what you say. And be very clear in your language. Don't leave doubt as to what should or should not happen. So I now know that my children, I've just told you, I now know that my children consume alcohol, but they have made it such a point for me not to know or not to be seen by me because they know what I think. So if I say to them, stop drinking or don't drink, they will know that I am coming from a very serious point and then maybe they will consider it. So, Catherine, haven't we reached? Oh, we still have time. Okay. I thought I could run away for my weekend. So, Catherine, I don't know if you still...
which you said. I think one of the things that we have is that we don't make the lines very clear. Go to bed today, maybe 8, maybe next time 8:30. And I think, especially in the early years, children need that rigidity for them to form character. And
Catherine, it's not rigidity. It is structure.
Yeah, they need a rigid structure.
Not rigid, they need a structure. And within that structure, you can be flexible. Like for instance, on school days, they had to go to bed at 8. On weekends, we flexed 9 o'clock, but they had to go to bed at a set time. That was the issue. So you build a structure, but that structure, Catherine, should not just be a structure for the children. You cannot say that the children should live a structured life when you're living an unstructured life. Today you are going to work, tomorrow you're not going to work. Today you leave at 9, tomorrow you leave at 11. What kind of person are you? So the structure is not just for them, but also in the behaviors. So you have structure when you have meals. Don't eat at every time. You have meals at this time. You must have meals and in this manner at this location, and in this, and then you don't dive into the dishes. That's structure. Now, so later on, when you are imposing the law, then they understand. By the way, Catherine, I also wanted to say something else which I forgot at the beginning, and it's absolutely important for me to say.
You can say.
Parenting also evolves. So the parent you are for a child who is between the age of 0 and 5 is completely different from the parent you will be for a child who is between 5 and 12, and also the child who is between 12 and 21, and then the child who is between 22 and 35, and a child who is above 35. Because even an adult child who is 35 and above is still your child. But the parenting style and obligations change with the evolution of the child. The manner in which I speak to my 20-year-old son now is different from when I was speaking to him as a high school student. He's now in university. Now, life has become a partnership between me and him. We discuss, we look at options. He tells me what he would have liked to choose. And I see if it is safe or wise, then I let him go. And I'll give you an illustration. In 2018, I made the assumption that because my son was doing well in mathematics and physics and chemistry, he was most likely going to be an engineer. I even traveled to a foreign country and I went to look at a university where I wanted him to go, where I would have wanted him to go. I made inquiries. And then I came back and I told him, yeah, I have found the perfect place. He was still a high school student and he kept quiet. So after talking and talking for a bit of time, he told me, but you know, Daddy, I am more interested in the financial issues and economics. I said, even for that, I managed to see another college. He kept quiet. Then 1 year later, he wasn't shifting. He wasn't interested in what I was telling him about the university. Then my wife quietly told me, look, stop pushing the child. He's feeling pressured to make a choice. He has exams, so you leave him alone. I said, okay. Now, one day he sends me a message. He says, but I insisted on one thing. I said, you may decide what course you want to do and what country, and what university to go to, but you're going to country X. So I don't care what you do, but the country I will decide for reasons best known to me as a parent and my ability to afford the education. He said, okay. So one day out of the blue, he then sends me an email. No, he actually called. I think I called him or we discussed, and he tells me I have finally figured out what I want to do and where I want to do it. And indeed, he had thought it through. I then said, okay, now that you know, you start the application process for the university. And he handled his own application, concluded it, everything, and left to go for that university and to do that course. He's so committed to his course because he's the one who selected. So at this point, I cannot impose my thought process on him. I can only question his choices and his judgment to see if he has thought it through. And if he has thought it through, or if he hasn't, then he makes corrective measures. So at a certain point, parenting will involve being firm and determining the direction and making the choices. So we made the choices about which schools they went to for primary education, which choices they went to for high school education. Then we started to debate what subjects they were interested in and so on. Now, as they approach university, they make their own choices. The only thing we tell them, we assist them with is don't choose a bad university where there is no traction or whatever, or a country which has no. So we are involved at that level. But in terms of the details of choosing, now you realize that you are a partner, not a master. Behavior. I wanted to say that, Catherine.
Wow, that is, I think parents to be worried there. But but it's quite interesting to know how things change, and parents to know that we still remain parents, but the level at which we intervene is very different. Yes. Is there any last question to ask Mr. Kabushenga before he signs off for the weekend? And I just want to say that Mr. Kabushenga has a very good mentoring program on Twitter where he met us. Maybe you want to speak about it, Mr. Kabushenga?
So I do something called 360 Mentor. I speak to people every Monday and every Thursday on different subjects. And the reason I'm doing that is because I have acquired a lot of experiences with my life and I've also met so many people who can share is that we want to save the situation. If me and Catherine had been exposed to this kind of thing earlier on, we probably would have made much, much better choices. So I'm doing that. So I think one of the sessions should be about parenting in a different context, not like mine now talking to you, but I'll find a way so that you can join in. But if also you're facing pressures, what do you want to do with your life? And those questions come at different stages. It's not just the earlier younger people, even us in our 50s. I know many friends who are my age mates who are now faced with a personal crisis. What do they do for the next 20 years? Even those who are well-to-do, they're asking those questions. Where do they find fulfillment? Where do they find actualization? How do they find validation? So those are the kinds of things that we talk about. Yeah. Oh yeah, and by the way, Catherine, while I'm here, let me also say that on Monday, I am going to be hosting a very interesting lady called Susan Wilkinson. She's a Ugandan, but has an English name. She talks about how families can find support and deal with mental health issues of people that they are looking after. So please join me on Twitter on Monday for that purpose.
Yes. And then you can find Mr. Kabushenga on his Twitter handle, where he has a huge following on Twitter. Please find him, Robert Kabushenga.
It's actually it's at our Kabushenga. It's very lively. We most of the time it's nonsense, but you know it's yeah. Okay,
yes.
Good.
So you can find him there on Twitter and engage him. I like the passion. I have listened actually to the YouTube because most of the 360 mentorship talks by very refined people in their field are featured on the YouTube channel. So you can actually make it a point to listen at least to one talk every week if you are so busy, but you'll find speakers that will motivate you. I often do catch up on talks there. So Mr. Kabushenga, we have really been privileged. You have to thank for us, Cindy, for taking good care of you all these years. Yes, over 20 years now.
Yeah.
Yes, I know that history. So
and I still look younger.
So, I mean, it's just an amazing partnership, and we thank God for you and for how you've been able to speak to parents and present these principles. Thank you very much. We look forward to hosting you again, to speaking to parents, and greet everyone at Rugendo Farm and the coffee where we can find it. I think it's online. It's online at Jumia, and where else? I was looking for it.
I'll just give you a number of my guy. You can just text him and he'll deliver it. It's 0707. Actually, no, let me just type it here. I think I can just type the message. So call, or let me just do that. It'll be better for me to type it so then people can check again. So it is call or text Patrick on 0777-023-183. Okay, and that's enter. Good, yeah, all right.
Okay, I think we have got that number. Let us try out something original, something good. Thank you very much, Mr. Kabushenga, once again. And
you're most welcome.
Pick something from what you said, run with some two things, and you see how your family life will become more dynamic and more enjoyable. Thank you very much. I want to say that, Mr. Kabushenga, do you have a last word to say?
I just want to thank everybody who has stayed with us throughout the afternoon. People have lots of things to do, and they've chosen to sit and listen to us. But most importantly, people have texted really kind words and gratitude for what I have said.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
I only share my experiences. I'm not an expert. If it can help you, fine. If it doesn't, well, if there are any two that I think can help you a great deal is have meals with your family and pick your children from school. Just those two, they will make a world of a difference.
Thank you very much. That is very, very important. I've seen the kind words and the touching words, and that is very encouraging. As Mama Tendo Foundation, Mr. Kabushenga has spoken in these seminars for several years, and we don't even ever give him a coin. So he's really not even a coin. He has.
You make me very famous, so that's good.
That is interesting because I keep all the quotes that you've spoken.
That
I keep
anybody,
writing.
Catherine, that anybody still thinks I have something important to say is good enough for me.
That's good. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Mama Tendo Foundation. The link is there. We've had about 30 people on the YouTube, but please, you can subscribe to our YouTube. Would like to remind you that next year we are going to have our seminars for those mothers who are winning their small children.
Catherine, can I go now?
Yes, please, Mr. Kabushenga.
Bye, guys.
See you next time. Yes. So before we leave, all of us, I just wanted to make these announcements. We have our winning seminar next year, early next year. So if you have a young child, baby, and you plan to win them in the next 2 months, make sure you are part of this seminar. As I have said, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We need your subscription to support our work. Mama Tendo Foundation is a charity organization, so we depend on donations, and people can sponsor us and sponsor our speakers. So if you think you are able to do this, please get in touch to support families in Uganda. We run a Mama Tendo shop online. The links have been posted. Check it out. And I think that is it we have for now. Thank you so much for spending this
Mama Tendo.
Yes, please.
Mama Tendo, please share about concerning the launch of the Family Focus. People can join in online.
Yes, please, Aaron, can you please share something? I'll give you an opportunity to share about it because you've internalized it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Life Ministry Uganda and working together with a number of organizations like Mama Tendo Foundation and other family-related organizations have come together and formed a family life think tank. And this is meeting, and this coming Saturday on 5th of November, we shall be launching the Family Focus. And the event will be streamed on Zoom, on YouTube, and Facebook. What we would do, Mama Tendo, maybe we can share the flyers and links on the various networks so that people can log in and be part of what is happening. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, so
Okay.
we'll be having the keynote, maybe the keynote speakers will be Mr. Peter and Mrs. Dorothy Kisaka. The guest of honor is Janet, First Lady Janet Museveni. And yeah, so can be part of that. Some guests will be together physically, but the rest we can join in on online. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Life Ministry. Thank you so much, Life Ministry, for the work you are doing, building and supporting families, and running parent programs for married people, Christians, even Muslims join. So thank you very much for that. So I think I had finished the announcements. Please subscribe to our channel, as we said, and we look forward to seeing you. We are likely to have one seminar before the end of the year, and we shall communicate about it. If there is any change in program, we shall let you know. So thank you very much. I just want to thank my staff, my team, for spending this Saturday evening here. Linda, Brian, Abia, they are seated with me here. Switch on your cameras and wave to people. Yes, they're switching on their cameras and waving. Thank you very much for everything, and God bless you. Let us end with a word of prayer. Father, we thank you so much for what we have had today, being shared with by Mr. Kabushenga. Some of these things have really provoked us. Even we don't know where to start. We are asking you to give us strength to pursue things that you are particularly talking to us about. And so that we can be able to change negative dynamics in our families and institute positive dynamics in our families. We thank you for the gift of family. We thank you for the gift of children. We thank you for the gift of parents. And may you remember every child in Uganda, every home in Uganda, every home in Africa. We thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name we have prayed. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Mama Tendo, for organizing.
You are most welcome. Thank you so much, Hope, for attending.
Pleasure is mine.